Good evening. This is Daniel Hart. I wanted to personally apologize for the inconvenience. I shouldn't have done what I did. I regret it more than I can say right now. Please know that I'm truly sorry for everything.
The billionaire had never sent a voice note in his life until that night. He usually typed short, cold, professional, but this customer was different. Rose had complained politely for weeks. Never rude, never desperate, just calm messages. Even when her orders kept getting delayed. Hello, family. Welcome back. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave a comment. It truly means the world to us. Share this video with your friends and loved ones, and be sure to turn on post notifications so you never miss any of our future videos. Thank you so much for the love and support. The room was quiet, except for the sound of rain tapping against her window. Her son was asleep on the small bed beside her, clutching a worn-out teddy bear with one missing eye. Rose stared at her phone. Unknown business contact. She almost ignored it. Then she pressed play. Good evening. This is Daniel Hart. I wanted to personally apologize for the inconvenience. Her breath caught. The air left her lungs like she had been punched. That voice, deep, calm, familiar. Her fingers trembled as she lowered the phone. Tears blurred her vision before she even understood why. She whispered, barely audible, "Daniel." Memories rushed back violently. A younger Daniel, laughing under a streetlight. Daniel, promising forever, with empty pockets and big dreams. Daniel kissing her forehead and saying, "Wait for me." She had waited for months, with a baby growing inside her, while the world pretended she didn't exist. The phone vibrated again. Another voice note. I don't usually send voice messages. I prefer texts. But something about your patience stood out to me. She let out a broken laugh. Patience? If only he knew how much patience had already destroyed her. She pressed record without thinking. Her voice came out soft, fragile, older than it should be. Thank you for your apology, sir. I understand. Delays happen. She paused. Her chest hurt. Your voice just reminded me of someone I used to know. Across the city, in a glass-walled penthouse glowing above the skyline, Daniel listened. Something tightened in his chest. He didn't know why, but he replayed her message 3 times. There was sadness in her voice. A quiet kind, the kind that comes from surviving too much. He replied, I hope that memory was a good one. She read the message and smiled sadly. A good one? She whispered. She looked at her sleeping son. His nose, his dimples, his voice when he laughed. All Daniel. Her fingers hovered over the screen. Then she typed, he was the love of my life. Daniel stared at his phone longer than necessary. He swallowed. What happened? She didn't reply immediately. She went to the window. Rain streaked down the glass like tears she had long run out of. Then she typed the truth, but gently. He left to chase his dreams. I stayed to raise ours. Silence. Minutes passed. Daniel's heart began to race, though he couldn't explain why. He sent another voice note. His voice wasn't as steady this time. I'm sorry. Whoever he was a fool. Her phone slipped from her hand. A sob escaped her before she could stop it. That night, neither of them slept. He kept thinking about her voice. Rose kept staring at her son. 2 lives moving in parallel, finally brushing against each other again. Neither of them knew yet that the billionaire and the struggling customer were not strangers. That love had already written their story once, and that fate, cruel as it was, had decided to give it another chance. Morning came softly, not with hope, but with heavy thoughts. Daniel watched the sky change from deep black to pale blue through the glass walls of his penthouse. The city below woke up slowly, cars moving, lights switching off one by one, yet inside him, nothing felt awake. Everything felt shaken. Her voice kept replaying in his head. Not loud, not dramatic, just tired. The kind of tired that comes from carrying life alone. Across the city, Rose sat on the edge of the bed long after dawn. Rose hadn't slept at all. She kept watching her son, afraid that if she closed her eyes, the night would take everything back. The call, the truth, the fragile bridge that had formed between yesterday and today. She brushed her fingers through his hair. So it's really you, she whispered. After all this time, Ethan stirred and opened his eyes. "Mom?" he mumbled. "Yes, my love. Why are you awake?" he asked. She forced a small smile. "I was just remembering something." He sat up and studied her face too carefully for a 7-year-old. "Were you crying again?" he asked. Her heart clenched. "No," she lied gently. "Just tired." He leaned forward and wrapped his arms around her neck. "I'll be a big man soon," he said seriously. "Then you won't be tired anymore." She closed her eyes and held him tighter. Across town, Daniel stood in front of his bathroom mirror, his tie loose, his eyes red. He barely recognized the man staring back at him. He had built an empire, but had no family, or so he thought. His phone buzzed. For one terrifying second, he thought it was her. It wasn't. It was his assistant reminding him of meetings. He canceled them all. For the first time in years, money felt unimportant. He sat down and opened his laptop not to work, but to search. Her name, Rose Anderson. At first, nothing. Then a small business page appeared. Handmade products, modest prices, customer reviews praising her kindness. One review stopped him cold. "She's a single mom who still shows up with a smile." Single mom? Daniel's chest burned. He scrolled through the pictures, her hands packaging orders, a corner of a small living room. A child's drawing taped to the wall, "Mom and me." He closed the laptop and pressed his fist against his mouth. Could it be her? He whispered. "The girl I loved and still love." Meanwhile, Rose walked Ethan to school like she did every morning. The streets smelled of bread and exhaust fumes. Life went on, unaware that something had shifted. "Mom," Ethan said suddenly, kicking a small stone, "do you think my dad ever thinks about me?" Her steps slowed. "Yes?" she said, surprising herself. "I think he does." Ethan nodded, satisfied. "Maybe one day I'll meet him," he said. Her heart skipped painfully. "Maybe," she echoed. That afternoon, Daniel typed a message, deleted it, typed again, deleted it again. Finally, he sent, "I couldn't sleep. I keep thinking about you. You sound like someone I loved. Someone I still love. Could we meet? I need to be sure of who you are." She stared at the message, tears filling her eyes. After a long moment, she replied, "Okay. Where and what time?" "Tomorrow, 5 p.m. The cafe, downtown." Neither of them said what they were truly thinking, that they were scared, that they still cared. That love, once buried, doesn't die. It waits. Two lives, no longer moving in parallel, now slowly turning toward the same road again. And somewhere ahead, between guilt and forgiveness, between past and present, a second chance waited. The next day arrived faster than either of them wanted. By noon, Daniel had changed his shirt twice. By 4, he stopped checking the time altogether because every glance at his watch made his chest tighten. At 4:30, Daniel left the penthouse and drove himself for the first time in years, ignoring the driver waiting downstairs. He needed to feel the road, to remember he was human. At the cafe downtown, Daniel chose a small table by the window. Nothing fancy, no assistants, no security. Just him and the quiet fear that sat beside him like an uninvited guest. 5 o'clock came. Then 5:02. Daniel told himself not to panic. He had waited 7 years already. Across town, Rose stood outside the cafe, fingers wrapped tightly around her phone. Through the glass, Rose saw him, older, sharper, but still Daniel. The man who once borrowed money just to take her out for dinner. The man who promised forever and vanished. Rose's legs felt heavy as she pushed the door open. The bell chimed softly, betraying her arrival. Daniel looked up, and everything else disappeared. He stood so quickly his chair scraped loudly against the floor. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Words felt too fragile, too dangerous. "Hi," Rose said first, her voice trembling. Daniel tried to speak, but his voice failed him. He only nodded. They sat. Silence stretched, but it wasn't empty. It was filled with everything they had never said. "You look tired," Daniel finally said, softly. Rose smiled faintly. "So do you." "I didn't know how to start," Daniel admitted. There's so much I need to say." "Then don't start big," Rose replied gently. "Start honest." Daniel took a deep breath. "I never stopped loving you." Rose's eyes glistened, but Rose didn't look away. "I never stopped either," Rose said quietly. "I just learned how to live without you." That hurt Daniel more than anger ever could. Rose's hands tightened around her cup. "I saw you, Daniel," Rose said suddenly. Daniel froze. "Saw me?" "Yes," Rose continued, her voice shaking now. "That night, in the parking lot." Daniel's heart dropped. "I came to tell you something important," Rose said. "I was pregnant." Daniel's face drained of color. "But instead," Rose went on, tears spilling freely now, "I saw you hugging another woman. You were smiling, happy, and I stood there like I didn't exist." "Wait." Daniel leaned forward urgently. "Please, let me explain." Rose shook her head. "Your parents never liked me," Rose said bitterly. "They made that clear every chance they got. And then the next thing I heard, you had left. With her." "That's not true," Daniel said quickly. "I didn't leave with her." "Then where did you go?" Rose asked, her voice breaking. "Because you left me. You left us, and all the promises we shared." "I didn't abandon you," Daniel said, his voice cracking. "I came back. I looked for you everywhere." Rose laughed softly through tears. "I waited," Rose said. "I looked for you too, but you were gone. Then my parents sent me abroad. I had no choice." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, his hands shaking. "The woman you saw me hugging," Daniel said slowly, carefully, "was my cousin Claudia." Rose's breath hitched. "So all this time," Rose whispered. "All this time," Daniel said, eyes filled with regret, "we were both looking for each other, and missing by inches." Silence fell again, heavy, painful. "I raised our son alone," Rose said quietly. "I buried my anger just so I could survive." Daniel broke. "I should have fought harder," Daniel whispered. "I should have come back sooner. I failed you." Tears rolled openly down Daniel's face now. Rose looked at him for a long moment, this man who had broken her heart, yet still held it. "This doesn't erase the past," Rose said softly. "I know," Daniel replied. "But if you allow me, I want to spend the rest of my life making it right." Rose's lips trembled. Outside, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows through the cafe window. Two hearts once torn apart by misunderstanding, pride, and silence sat face to face again, wounded, exposed, but still beating for each other, and for the first time in 7 years. The truth was finally spoken. Daniel didn't sleep the night after the cafe. Not because of regret this time, but because of fear. Fear of the moment he had dreamed of and dreaded all at once. They met at a quiet park the next afternoon. No luxury cars, no bodyguards, no grand gestures. Just Daniel and a little boy sitting on a bench, swinging his legs and lining up toy trains beside him. Rose stood a few steps away, arms crossed, not cold, just protective. "That's Ethan," Rose said softly. Daniel's knees almost gave way. Ethan looked up. Same eyes, same dimple when he smiled slightly. Daniel swallowed hard and walked closer, slowly, like approaching something sacred. "Hi," Daniel said, kneeling so they were eye level. "I'm Daniel." Ethan studied him carefully. "You're my dad, right?" Ethan asked plainly. Daniel's breath broke. "Yes?" Daniel whispered. "If you'll let me be." Ethan nodded after a moment. "Okay," Ethan said. "Mom says you were lost." Tears blurred Daniel's vision. "I was," Daniel said. "But I found my way back." Ethan handed him a toy train. "Hold this," Ethan said. "It's the fastest one." Daniel smiled through tears and took it like it was gold. Rose turned away, wiping her eyes. Days later, Daniel stood in his parents' grand living room. The air was cold, the expectations heavier. "You will marry who we arranged," Daniel's father said firmly. "That woman and her child will only stain the family name." Daniel stood straight. "No," Daniel said calmly. "They are my family." His mother scoffed. "Love makes men weak." Daniel met her eyes without fear. Then I choose weakness. His father's voice hardened. If you walk away from this marriage, you walk away from us. Io. Daniel didn't hesitate. I already walked away once, Daniel said quietly. I won't do it again. Silence filled the room. Daniel picked up his coat. I respect you, Daniel added. But I won't live a life you chose for me. He walked out without looking back. Healing didn't happen overnight. Daniel learned how to pack school lunches, how to listen instead of command, how to sit on the floor and build train tracks. Rose learned how to trust again slowly. There were hard conversations, quiet tears in the dark, moments when the past still hurt, but there was also laughter. Ethan calling Daniel Dad for the first time, Rose leaning into Daniel without fear. 3 hearts learning how to beat together. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Daniel knelt not in guilt, but in promise. Rose, Daniel said, holding her hands, I built an empire and still felt empty. I walked away from everything I was told to want and found everything I needed in you. Rose's voice trembled. Are you sure? Daniel smiled at Ethan, then back at Rose. I choose you. I choose my son. Every single day. Tears streamed down Rose's face. Yes, Rose whispered. They married quietly. No pressure. No arrangements. Just love. Daniel didn't just rebuild his life. Daniel rebuilt his heart. And this time, he never walked away. Did you enjoy this story? Kindly let us know where you are watching from. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for watching.